Hello and welcome to this video walkthrough from the homework of the first Dominator video lesson. Today we're going to first set up all the tooling that you need to actually run these applications, and then we're going to implement a small reference design. The first thing you'll want to do is to head over to GitHub and clone this repository. Once you have done that, you should go to the task.md file in the first homework directory, and here you will find instructions on what to do. Basically, you're going to go to rustup.rs, which you can find here, and there will be instructions for your operating systems on how to install these. Basically, you should just need to copy this command and execute it on your shell. Similarly, there's a link to the NVM repository here. You go to that one, and if you scroll down, you will find instructions on how to install it on your OS as well. NVM is Node Version Manager, and we use that to manage which node version our project should build with. We have it committed to a file actually here. It says node version 22. So when we go into the homework directory and we do nvm install, it will make sure that it downloads and installs the correct version of node and npm for us to use. Also, you are going to need to install the WASM 32 unknown target to be able to build for the WebAssembly target. You can actually run this from the IDE here. Once all this is in place, we simply do npm install to fetch the dependencies of our project. And then we do npm start, which will start the development server and launch our web UI in the browser. So if you look at the command line here, you see it is actually running server locally. And this rollup plugin that is developed by the maintainer of Dominator is actually looking at our Rust code and recompiling it whenever we make a change to it. So if we go to the code now and say, this is fun, and save, you see it rebuilds and reloads immediately. That's pretty much it for the first half of the exercise. We have all our tooling installed and we're able to run our application locally. Now, let's look at the second and possibly more fun part of the exercise. We're going to change this application here into the design we see on the left of the screen. This is made in Penpot, which is a pretty cool design tool, by the way, free and open source. I have provided most of the CSS values needed for this in the design, so you can fetch the values from here. It's basically colors and the border radius of the dialog. There's a link to the CSS tricks page on Flexbox, which we are going to need to make this design. The design itself is pretty much a dialog in the center of the screen with a header that has like a very thin underline. I'm not sure how well it translates to video, and two columns of text in the body of the pop-up. So let's have a quick look at what the HTML macro actually is doing before we move forward. You see this syntax here, where there's a block following the name of the tag we wish to construct. We call this an apply block. So what is actually happening is the HTML macro makes a DOM builder instance, and it calls the methods we put inside of the apply block on that DOM builder. To type that out, we can make a small my DOM variable here, and it will have the type DOM in the end. And we construct this by first making a DOM builder, which we need to provide a type parameter to. We use HTML element in this case. And we simply do new HTML and give it a div tag here. At this point, we can call .text on this div, and we provide foobar to it, because I'm not creative. And then finally we do into DOM, which takes the DOM builder's properties and constructs a DOM node inside of the browser for us. Now, the DOM type that we are having here is simply a handle to the DOM object inside of the browser. And now we are free to add this as a child to the HTML, to the body here. So we say my DOM, and this should show foobar, yes. Now we tell the HTML builder here to add my DOM as a child. But now let's analyze our design a little bit. So what we're seeing here is essentially a body where the header and this row of columns are two rows. And this is the perfect use for flex layout. But let's take a look at the body element here first. As we can see, it's not really filling the screen as we want it to. So let's first take care of that. It has a margin, it seems, and it also doesn't have the full height. So let's force it using the style function. First we set the margin to be 0. And then we set the width and height to be 100%. Now you can see it fills the whole screen. And so if we put the child in here now, this will eventually represent our pop-up. Actually, let's use this text. We can see that this renders inside of the body. And now let's choose some dimensions for this pop-up. I'm guessing 450 by 250 pixels should be good. So we will set these two properties on the pop-up for 450 pixels and 250 pixels. Yes. And finally, let's put the colors on there so that it looks more like the design. So the body will have this color, 2E3434. And then we set background color on this body. And the pop-up will have this 18181A. Now this we need to center, and now we add the flex layout. So we set first of all display flex on the body container. That's not how you do this. And we want to align both vertically and horizontally, so we set align items to be center. And we also set justify content to be center. There it is aligned. And finally, this should have a border radius of 8 pixels, just to make it look pretty. There we go. So that takes care of the positioning of the actual pop-up or dialog in our design. Now let's start looking at the header element. So let's say this has two, that's the text and it has the separator, so we will have two elements inside of the header element. We'll go here and we'll say, let's use the children function because we will have more than one child. Then we add our header container. And this will in turn have two children. It will have the text. And then we'll actually have this text. And it will have its separator. We'll set the width of the separator to be, let's say 200 pixels. And the height is 1 pixel for it. And finally, this separator has the same color as the body background. And the text of the header is white. Okay. And now we need to center these two horizontally. And we do this with, guess what, flex. So we will set the header container to have display flex. This one will have flex direction column. And it will have justify content center and line item center. Actually, it should probably only have a line item center. And finally, we see here there's a little bit of padding ahead of the header. So we'll add that in there and say it has padding top about 20 pixels. That looks good. And now we can add the body of the pop-up, which will hold the two columns. Again, we'll add just a div. And on this one, we wanted to consume the remainder of the vertical height here. So we'll set flex grow to 1, which means it's allowed to expand vertically as much as it wants to. And it will in turn have two children. Each one of them will hold the text that we actually see in the design. And here we used a pre-tag to preserve the formatting of the text. Now we can actually lift the text straight out of the SVG here. We'll take this one and we will set it here. And then we'll add another pre-tag for the this is a lot of fun text. This is a lot of fun. Now these are vertically stacked per usual, so again we're adding flex to this row container. But in this case we want flex direction row, which means it will flow horizontally. And we want these to have a gap between them. So let's add the gap property. I think about 40 pixels here should be good. And we want to justify content center on this one. As a matter of fact, this one should also be vertically. Yes, this should also be vertically aligned, so we'll use align items as well. Oh, right, and you also need to put flex on the container they're in. One of these days I will learn basic HTML. Anyhow, this is very close. And now the last step here is to just change the color of this text, which I believe is this color. And there we go. We have implemented our basic reference design that we saw in the picture. Now, just a word on the styling here. This is fairly verbose styling. It's a bit reminiscent of Tailwind CSS, although there's even more text here. But the idea is pretty much the same, that you have the style living with the code for the component, which means there's no indirection between where the style lives and where the code lives. So you can look at the component code and you can see everything. You can see what it will look like and what the DOM structure is. Of course, the drawback is that you can see everything in one place. But later in the course, we will touch upon a much more Tailwind-esque way of writing the style, but that's a more advanced topic that we'll cover later. So, I hope this was useful. I will see you in the next video where we talk about reactive designs and mutable data structures. Goodbye!